Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Classic Quest podcast. This is the show where we break down the classic albums and the hip-hop ones. Wow, I said that terribly. And we talk about them track by track. We're also awkward as fuck. My name's Holden Stephan Roy.
I am your lady friend, Bonnie.
And today we'll be going through part 2, tracks 11 through 20 of Eminem's Relapse album. I wanted to just point at it, and I realized it's pointing in the wrong direction. That's fine. We're gonna
It's
not
also like really far away from like the camera, so
we are not necessarily gonna do as much of the intro bit because honestly, we highly recommend you go watch part 1, which should appear in the corner if you haven't yet seen it, because that's the first half of the album and all of that good stuff. But let's say you're like,
we talk a lot, so I mean, it would have just gone on and on. So it's better just to like kind of cut it in half a bit.
Yeah, it was over 2 hours because honestly, the more we delved into Relapse, at least on my end, I was blown away with how much there was to actually say about this project. So before we get into it, I do want to let you know that your comments are super fucking important to us, and we think that they're just helpful. It's just amazing to read it. So instead of picking our favorite comment from last week and reading it, I picked all 5 comments the video got, the Relapse Part 1 review got between the time we released it and the time we started recording it. So shout out to Lindell Williams and his awesome comment. Sir Fappington, great name, and his awesome comment. And he wants to know if we're going to do recovery. Of course we will. It'll be a few months. We're spacing it out a bit. We don't want to run out of M too fast. We've only got 2 studio albums left. Crazy. Arthur Lima, thank you for your wonderful words. Minty Guy, another great name. Thank you for your wonderful words. And honestly, I didn't realize that people were not reviewing Relapse, because trust me, if I had known people weren't covering this album and that the 10-year had just passed, we would have done this at least 2 months ago.
Yeah.
And then Viatic Winter 647. It's awesome. Part 2's happening now, and you got to be in it in a way. There you go. So thank you all. It's really amazing. Like, honestly, getting 5 comments in a short period of time, that's really cool. As you can tell, our channel is not popping, so it's really amazing when we have those little moments where it kind of pseudo feels like we're popping for a half second. So thank you for making my mood extra dope today and participating in that. All that good stuff is done. Special thanks to the patrons in advance: Linda Williams, DJ Black Hurricane, Ismail Gadamsi, Chris Prado, Jonathan Barnes. Touch on that at the end. And Bonnie, what album are we doing part 2 of the review, tracks 11 through 24?
Well, this week we are doing part 2 of Eminem's Relapse album.
Yeah, so we're saying it for the Google bots. If you make videos like this, say the keywords a lot in the beginning. So we're not going to do a whole bunch of stuff. We're honestly at the point where we talked about the first half of the album. I presented my convoluted theory that this whole album has 2 things going on. Every song has its within itself story and it's within itself purpose. But truthfully, this story is kind of documenting Eminem's life, in a sense, and his history with drugs or something to that effect, right? You can watch the whole first video to get the recap on how, Dr. West and all that, blah, 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 and builds up.
Yeah.
So anyway, we were at Medicine Ball. And that part of the story is kind of like Eminem and his celebrity is recognizing that his therapy is to kind of just use people for the sake of humor and to lampoon things. And it doesn't really matter who you are. He is going to do what he has to do to like express himself and almost like, you know what, this is my world. I'm on top of my shit. And, kind of like that's where he's at in his life, right?
Yeah.
And then it makes sense if you listen to the whole other review. Anyway, so we're going to get into it then, and we're going to start off by talking about the Paul skit.
All right.
I just listened to the entire album, and you got to be fucking...
It's funny because the Christopher Reeve shit is literally the last verse of what we just heard. Eminem, I'm coming to kill you. Still cracks me up. I really enjoyed that. I didn't really enjoy it 10 years ago.
No.
But now I think it's really funny. I don't know. Sometimes the jokes just age properly.
I don't know. I just never thought anything, even when he was alive, that they were funny. Like, I was just like, I don't really get it. Like, why is he making fun of him?
I don't know, because it's his medicine ball to do so, right? And that's kind of the world.
I guess.
To answer your question, we discussed how like throughout the process of like his celebritydom and the way that tabloid culture is so commercialized and stuff, it was almost
I think
like,
it was just like a play on like the Superman thing, right?
but I think it was also just, yeah, like, I mean, at a certain point Superman dies and Superman's relevance to culture shifts, right? Like think about like the Our Lady Peace song Superman's Dead and things like that, right? So there is some kind of significance, I think, to lampooning Superman in a capitalist economy, in my opinion.
Okay.
Plus Christopher Reeves' name did rhyme with a lot of shit. What can we say? I don't know. And then I bet it was really because the first time he did it, people got mad, so he kept doing it because people got mad. Because again, this is the kind of context where there's no such thing as bad press when your entire character
true.
is based on shock culture, because that idea is not true. There's lots of bad press. Like if we were to drop an N-bomb right now, that is not good press. I'm
No.
just throwing it out there. There's no way to spin that. However, if you're trolling motherfuckers, you can spin that shit. Therefore, it can become good press. Either way, so we know how the Paul skits work. He's kind of like, dude, what the fuck? But he's usually like, okay with it. He's just like, all right, whatever. They're not happy. This time he's like, I just listened to the entire album. You gotta be fucking kidding me. I'm in with this Christopher Reeve shit. You know the guy's dead, right? And the whole gay stepfather incest rape thing, I don't have your back on this one. I can't even fucking handle it. I'm done. And I thought it was perfect, right?
Yep.
Because, I mean, the Paul skits do represent that kind of moral conscience on each of the albums, right? That's kind of what Paul's almost been in the whole series of it. So if you think about where Medicine Ball takes us in the story, he's kind of doing whatever the fuck he wants to do. On this time, it's kind of like Paul's looking at him like, dude, you've gone too far, you know? And maybe this was some shit that was happening. Maybe, like, we don't understand the full behind the scenes of the story.
Well, I think that there is truth to, like, their, like, every time. Like, I always think that there's, like, their phone calls and, like, the skits. Like, whenever there's, like, you know, these guys who were involved in, like, the making of his album and, like, just kind of, like, the white guys in charge. Like, it sounds pretty real. And, like, sometimes I'm, like, kind of shocked and or impressed that these guys agreed to, like, make these skits or phone calls. And
I mean, these are the same kinds of guys that are totally willing to whore out anybody for billions of dollars, right? So I'm not surprised that they were...
put their money where their mouth is, right?
Like, my gut reaction is all of these skits are written by Eminem.
Oh, yeah, probably.
But, like, they're, like, scripted. Like, they're, like, probably based on, like, real calls, and he just uses them as a vehicle to serve some points. So if you look at what's happening here, if Paul's abandoning him, proof is gone. This is the part of his life that I think represents some serious loss after his fame.
Okay.
So think about it. Like, he doesn't, because none of it's, like, outright. And so it is a little bit of speculation, but, like, Paul might be one of the people closest to him. And then in this period of his life after 2004, when he's going crazy and he's doing all sorts of wonky shit and all sorts of whatever, Paul's like saying, fuck it, I'm done. You know, that's what this represents, I think, the loss in his life. Mm-hmm. And I don't think it has, because that's it. It does, that serves its purpose. And how people have abandoned him and that feeling of isolationism. And Paul's like, come on, fuck off, man. I've done so much for you, and this is how you're gonna play me? Because let's be real, Insane's a whack fucking song. I don't know. I really like this Paul skit because I do see it's like vehicular device on this, as a vehicular device on this album to move his plot forward, while also cracking me the fuck up. Still, 10 years later, 4.25.
All right. I mean, it's basically Paul Rosenberg, you know, like his message or thoughts on the album as usual. And it's fine, and he doesn't really like this album. I don't know. Like, I'm looking at, anyways, I gave it a 3.5 on 5, but I don't really know why I did. I mean, it's better than that, I would say, now that I'm thinking about it. But, yeah, I don't know. Maybe I feel like sometimes Eminem should have listened to him and like some of his thoughts, but you know, it's his stuff and he's gonna do what he needs to do to I don't know, to get it out. So I mean, that's fine.
I mean, on the other hand, if Eminem had listened to Paul and toned it down, he might have ended up as like a G-Eazy, you know, like a completely boring, blends into the background person. Like, let's be real.
And that's never going to be Eminem.
And I don't think that's attractive to anybody, to have to tone down your personality. Like, look, when I was being a hater, I had problems with this album, but like this whole review, I feel like I've kind of like it more and more the more I think about it. I might not enjoy listening to all of the songs as we've discussed, but there is that concept to it. And why don't we get into talking about a song before we get into that jibber jabber? So when you drink a lot of caffeine, as I've experienced in life, you stay wide awake.
Wilder, impregnate a lesbian, yeah, now let's see her have triplets and milder. Disintegrate them, baby.
All right, how do you feel about Stay Wide Awake?
Well, it's definitely a creepy one, and it's like more, like, you know, his like crazed fantasies and stuff that he has. He wants to kill and rape girls, and it's sort of like a horror film, kind of what's going on, and like that he's like this like killing monster that's, you know, on the loose basically. And, you know, throughout the album, you know, we are aware that he is really interested and, you know, kind of obsessed with serial killers. And it feels like, you know, I think he thinks that he's like super unique and he can like name all of them or whatever, and I think he does talk about that later on. But I think there's a surprisingly large amount of people that follow them and know everything about them.
She reads all sorts of books on serial killers and shit.
I've tried reading Helter Skelter. I can't get through it. It's just too brutal. But yeah, anyways, so I mean, you definitely fall into the rabbit hole in like YouTube or the internet or whatever when you start like watching everything. Anyways, but so yeah, I definitely have a fair amount of knowledge about these types of people. I think people like seeing them, and I think like what he likes about it is that they're so extreme. So he can mimic them in like that sense, that he can be extreme in his lyrics, in his sound, in his style, and everything that he does. And he has done a lot of like extreme things, so he can kind of like reflect and bring that energy to like the negative things in his life that he's kind of dealing with. But I don't really know what I was getting out of this song necessarily, besides it just sort of being like a creepy kind of Halloween type song. And I mean, it's fine. It's not a bad song, and I can definitely see like if you're like interested in like horror type things, that this would probably like appeal to you. But that's pretty much it. I gave it a 4.2 on 5.
I mean, allow me to just start out by saying on this track, Dr. Dre kills it, because like I said on the last part, it's very hit or miss for me. I feel like either I'm enthralled with the Dre beat or I'm like, why is this song here? In this case, I don't know. From the first time I ever heard it way back in the day, it just is an enthralling, engaging experience. Like, you get sucked in, and it's almost anthemic, and it has that classical feel, which is cool because, you know, as soon as my flow starts, I compose art like the ghost of Mozart. Even though they all say that they're real, I know that most aren't. Boy, you think you're clever, don't you? Girl, you think you're so smart. Come with me to another side in a world so cold and so dark. You know, and then he kind of like sings his little hook. A world so dark, a world so cold, a world where only some will go, but none return. When will they learn? Where do they go? God only knows. Stay wide awake. I don't know. I think this is a really interesting hook, because the verses, to me, represent the nightmares he probably has. This is how I'm placing this into my fiction version of how this album takes place, right?
Okay, yeah.
Because what was Eminem overdosing on? Like, what was a big thing that he was taking? It was sleeping pills. Like, he had a huge fucking problem with sleeping pills. And what's the song called? Stay Wide Awake. So what happens, like, if your dreams are all these nightmares and shit, so you require having these fucking sleeping pills to knock yourself out? Why are you taking these sleeping pills? And now maybe I'm stretching.
Well, I mean, it makes sense. I mean,
I think that Eminem placed everything in a particular order, and it is real. And I think that in the same way, like, We Made You is a clue to what the bigger song is. The title kind of unlocks how the song fits into the story, right? Because when you think about the title and the song, it makes total sense, right?
Okay, yeah. I mean, I see your point.
Because, I mean, as far as the verses go, it is these serial killer. It is like Slim Shady. It is just this onslaught. Now, allow me to point out one of the most incredible rhyming feats we may have come across in this album.
Okay.
So in verse 2, whatever, it starts off not in the rhyme scheme. There's a monster inside of me. It's quite ugly and it frightens me. I know it is. So cold, my friends don't know this other side of me. Now that's the main rhyme, of me. There's a monster inside of me. It's quite ugly and it frightens me, but they can't see what I can see. There's a vacancy in my tummy. It's making me play hide and seek like Jason. I'm so hungry. She's naked, see no privacy, but I can see she wants me. He does it for the whole verse. The entire verse. Pulls the drape. She goes right to sleep, and I can reap through the front seat. So blatantly, but silently, because I know that she's... I'm like... Whew, that's a lot of... Like, every line, with every fucking line,
Yeah,
with every
pretty
fucking
cool.
line... To the last one. I'm crazy, but it's alright with me. Man, life can be so empty. Stay away from me, because I'm dancing to quite a different drum beat. Obviously, I can flow it better, but I think I illustrated the point of how excellent this rhyming is. But at the same time, think about it. He becomes the most excellent rhymer. He's doing all this fancy-ass shit inside of the rhyme schemes and stuff in this serial killer crazy thing. But what is the actual impact of that shit on a person's mind? Right?
Yeah.
Think about the hook in the chorus. Like, this is part of it, you know? Like, come with me to the dark parts of my soul. A world will only go, but none return. When will they learn? Think about how that fits into the man, the marshal who is creating these fantasies. And maybe he's taking it so far in his mind that it's gotten to a point where, like, these are his nightmares. This is the shit he sees when he closes his eyes.
Okay.
So now he needs to take a bunch of sleeping pills and shit. That's how I'm placing it into the bigger narrative.
I think it's like the struggle of like, you know, staying awake and like having to deal with like the realities of like what's going on and like his issues and having to face them, and how that's a bigger nightmare than not sleeping, like, I guess.
Yeah, that definitely plays into it, because this, like, I mean, I don't know, it's just a really strong one. I also really like the part where he's like, jump out on you now, I was a Jawa from fucking Star Wars, Jabba the Hutt, biddy bye bye, it's time to die. I don't know, I really like that part in the way that it sounds. It doesn't have like anything extra to it. I mean, he references some serial killers and whatnot. It's really well done. Like, some of the times when he does the serial killer thing on this album is kind of creepy.
Yeah.
It's kind of weird. This to me feels like a homage to like horror movies and shit, and I think that's really cool. I think it's like a homage, like you said, like he drew influence from these people's minds and almost in an artful way recreated it. Like, this is, whereas Insane was an example of rhyming going real weird and bad, this is the complete opposite, but in the same creepy spectrum, right?
Yeah.
And he pulled it off perfectly here. Listen, this song is a 4.75 on 5. I'm gonna say that, like, because like back in the day, there was like the 5 or 6 songs I fell in love with off this album, and there's that nostalgia impact. But like, I used to rap this shit. Like, I'm pretty sure at one point I tried to learn all the words to it. There are other ones I still remember the words to. This one I remember loving because it was so dope. Anyway, so now we know that maybe he's a little bit erratic. Now let's look at it in the context also, just for my sake of my story, because I think that this album documents more of a relapse after the fact, right?
Okay.
Because there's that kind of angle to it. So remember, it starts off with him having his moment with Dr. West, and he wakes up and he's clearly having some issue, and then it's almost like we go back in time and we're flowing through the story, right, to a point where we're getting closer to the present. Now in the present, he's sober, right? And this is kind of him still remembering about. He's having all these memories at this point, because the album shifts with Paul. He's on his own. Everyone's isolated him. The fame is kicked in. He's feeling lonely.
Yeah.
And now the next chapter starts, and he's maybe having these nightmare-like issues, and things are kind of fucking crazy. He can't really sleep. He's a sober guy now, we'll say, right? Because there's no mentions of drugs in that song, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay. Yeah, I don't think so.
So that's a significant thing. He's talking about drugs this whole fucking time. All of a sudden, there's no drugs. I think that's important, because he's now a sober person for the sake of this thing, etc. And then we move into old time's sake.
I said one more time for old time's sake. Dre, drop that beat.
Okay, so now that we've gotten to this song, you can talk about the song in a minute. I just got to keep going with my story.
That's fine. Go ahead.
So now he's in the studio with Dre. He's sober. He's having a like whatever. He looks over and he sees Dr. Dre puffing on the chronic. So just blow a little bit of that smoke my way. You know, like,
Yep.
you know, I'm not going to smoke it, but, you know, let me get a little hit here. I'm just around it, you know. Let me get high off the secondhand smoke, so I'm not really, like, pushing it, you know. And I'm like, okay. Because once I realized, it was at old time's sake that my whole epiphany happened, because obviously...
Well, I imagine, like, obviously, like, this, at this point, like, he was sober, like, just kind of,
Yeah.
it's pretty clear.
But, like, this whole song's kind of, like, we're getting high together for old time's sake, for like one last time. Now, if you look at it from the addict point of view,
Bad idea.
when you're about to go on the wagon, off the wagon, you know, you're going to do it one more time for old time's sake. Now, maybe this is just a perspective I have from understanding the addict side of life a little bit, but you do it one time for old time's sake. You know, that's how you kind of justify it in your mind. And you're going to come in with something safe, like marijuana. Like, say you're in a private jet with Dr. Dre and your guys are getting high and making a banger or whatever. And, I mean, that's kind of like the core premise to this track. So I think this matters because of, anyway, for the story. But that's its significance here, is he's hanging out with his old buddy, Dr. Dre. Yep. They're in a familiar old setting, right? Because that's how the triggers and shit work, is if you go to the guy you used to smoke blunts and make music with, the temptation to smoke blunts and do it for old time's sake is going to be there. Yeah. Now, let's say you're sober for a while and you haven't had a crazy death experience. Maybe a little joint's not the biggest deal for you, or maybe maybe you don't even smoke, you're just in a closed room while people are puffing on blunts or whatever, you know. Either way, I think that's the point of how this song fits into my little story of Eminem's Relapse. Man, for all this effort, I would hope Eminem watches this motherfucker, and not some of my other videos, but this one, and goes, yeah, he got it. That's the story. Or somebody who knows. That would be so cool for me. Or if you guys came up with... Or if you guys have your own Eminem Relapse stories that are different than mine or similar, I would love to hear it, because I'm really into this whole story thing.
He really is.
Why don't you talk about the song just a little bit?
Okay. Well, I mean, it's just like him and like his buddy Dre, and it's kind of like goofy. With, I don't know, it's just kind of goofy, and Dr. Dre just kind of sounds like, I mean, he sounds pretty hard no matter what he says, honestly. And he's like, his voice and like his like tone is so perfect as like a juxtaposition for like Eminem, like, and just like his is like high pitched and like kind of like goofy and erratic, and like Dre's so like serious and like calm and like hard. So it's always good. And you know Eminem's basically, like you were saying, like he definitely enjoys the smell of weed, and it's just like nice, and it just because it is old time's sake, it is just like you just love like hearing about this like, you know, ongoing duo and like these buddies that are just like still hanging out and having a good time. And Dre is like really about smoking the weed, very heavily about smoking the weed, and then so I'm guessing like that, you know, kind of influences like Eminem, and that's, you know, probably a difficult thing for him to like I don't know the rules about like weed, but probably it's pretty bad, especially if you're like a recovering drug addict. I
mean, you want to be sober because anyway, I'll touch on that later on if you want.
Okay.
It fits into my narrative.
Okay, sure. And yeah, like you were saying, they're high on a plane, and it, you know, I think it's also like that. Like the setting, like it's like you're high, you're in a plane, you're flying high, like you're the whole thing is just like a metaphor, like within itself, I think. And this is just sort of like a fun song for old time's sake. Like it sounds goofy, like the stuff that they used to make. I appreciate it, so I imagine like this was like one like kind of like for the fans. Like there's nothing substantial to this one, but it's fun to listen to. And it's just them. It's just great. So I gave it a 4.2 on 5.
Yeah, I feel like this is like, I mean, they obviously knew that they were at a point in life where things had changed and maybe they would never be going back in the direction that they had come from musically, right? Yeah. Like, and it was never going to go backwards because that phase is over. And this song just kind of has all these little subliminal cues, right? Like, I'm Dre from back in the day, from NWA, from, I said that bad. That was fucked up, Holden. You know the flow better. From back in the gray, from choking a bitch to smacking her face, from stacking up, you know, all the shit that's kind of his past.
Yep.
And then Eminem, speak of the devil, let's attack at a Rain Man. And I'm like, I don't know why he shouts out his song Rain Man, but he does. Chainsaw and hand, blood stained on my apron. As soon as the blade spun, they run away from, you know, shooting back to like the older stuff like Kill You and things. Just kind of giving you these little throwbacks to like get you in the vibe of Em and Dre are back. It feels to me like it comes off like what's that one off of fucking Eminem show with Dre? I can't fucking remember the name of it right now.
I don't know.
Anyway,
There's
it
lots
kind of
them.
anyway, it feels like the one off of Eminem show, but like a little bit lighter, and that's okay. But because it's a fun little song, like it just sounds like they did it more for them. Like they wanted to have their last hurrah together in this like silly kind of way, and to do it, you know, like this just sounds like a dope, like you just pictured them having like this great old time. You know, the drugs are being mentioned a little bit, but again, it feels like it's more thinking back on the old days with Slim Shady era and etc. You know.
Yep.
And then you can hear Eminem kind of like, you know, fuck the handle, I fly off the hinge, let that boy out the bench, coach and throw it to him. There he goes in his trench, no clothes again. You know, and it kind of like it just kind of gives you an example of the attitude and the way his mentality was, especially back in the day, because it's like they are just kind of reminiscing, I believe, as they're making this album, you know. I really do enjoy it when Dr. Dre is like, if at first you don't succeed, it won't hurt to smoke some weed. Now them words are just a little more personal for me, seeing as how I blew up off of puffing them trees.
Yep.
He also has the infamous I never smoke cess line off of that fucking NWA track, which I always enjoy thinking of when he talks about puffing it. Anyway, and then Eminem kind of like, it looks like he cracks at the end of the song, like they've been bouncing around, they've been reminiscing, and then look at verse 7. Well, smoke enough for me, fuck yeah, light it up, Cheech, come on, smoke me out, give me contact buzz. You know, it's like you can just almost picture like a smoky little room. Now, I don't think Eminem puffs on it per se. I think he gets high on the secondhand smoke for the sake of whatever. But I think that it's implied
Dre is just smoking a lot of weed for his friend.
And Eminem's like, yeah, this is so fun. I can't smoke for me. But they're in their... And I'm picturing it in a plane because why the fuck not? You know, like they could. Or they're in the studio. Either way, I'm picturing it more in an enclosed area with like... If you smoke a 14s of grams in a short period of time in an enclosed area... without confessing anything, that room will get the whole... I could get a lot of people a little bit buzzed in the room who may not want it to be if you just chain smoking without confessing to anything. So...
Okay.
I'm just saying, in case, like, the governments and stuff, I'm not confessing to anything. I might know things. Anyway.
Okay.
It
is legal now, eh?
Doesn't matter. You still have bosses and people who think a certain way about it, and either way, kids might be watching. You don't want to confess to shit. That's some snitching stuff. You don't snitch yourself out on the internet.
Nope, I guess not.
If you're 31, don't be smoking blunts on the internet. I mean, maybe if you want to do it for like a videos purpose or something like that, but... Okay, actually, how do you guys feel about snitching yourself out with weed on the internet? Is that something you're allowed to do?
I don't know if it's snitching yourself out.
Well, in a sense, it could be. Like, if, let's say your lease of your apartment says you're not allowed to do it, and then you're doing it on camera clearly in your apartment, in the court of law, you're snitching yourself out, say they want to evict you. That is an actual thing.
Okay.
So depending on your situation, it's kind of doing that. Or say you know your boss doesn't want you to do it, it could end up being a way of snitching yourself out by consuming marijuana in public, especially like if you didn't purchase it through legal channels. That I'm not admitting to either. I'm just explaining the law.
Okay.
Anyway, so I give this song a 4.25. I feel like it's a fun one, but like it is almost inconsequential. It's one like if it comes on, I'm like, yeah, but like I never remember it.
Yeah.
So I don't know that it's significant to me in any meaningful way.
Well, it must be the ganja.
I don't mind. I said it's the ganja, it's the marijuana.
Just remember, this is right after him and Dre are splitting the bill, implying that what happens after you hotbox in the room with Dr. Dre, you might get a little bit high.
Yep.
Anyway, how do you feel about this song before I talk a lot?
This is definitely like a good follow-up song to the last song. Like it's very much like follows suit. And you know, a song about weed and hanging out, and you know, he's kind of like talking about being high off of weed, but like in his case, like it's more like the fumes, I guess, or secondhand. And like the beat's fine, the rhymes are fine, like it's all good. I do like the reference to the Sound of Music that they do when he does like the I can't do it. Like the fa sol la ti do. Anyways, I mess it all up. But I like that part. Anyways, I like the feature of like the harpsichord. Like that's such a random instrument to throw in there. And this is sort of like. This is the one where he's kind of like saying that he feels basically like he knows all this like trivia type knowledge about like all of these serial killers and like the way that it happens and like which weapons are used, you know, for each one. Like he knows like everything about everyone, I guess. And I mean, it's pretty interesting, I guess, you know, and we all have those random facts in our heads. But I mean, overall, it's basically just like a song about getting high, in my opinion. And it was fine. I gave it a 4 on 5.
So I think this song, as is the case, it does two things. I believe that fundamentally the first two verses kind of play more into the narrative, you know, oh shit, I'm high, the weed's kicked in, everything's getting a little bit crazy, you know, having a good time, and you know, he's out of it, and you know, kind of like, it doesn't seem like it actually is a good stoner song, like in the sense that it fits like weed crazy, you know, like, so crack a six pack with some nachos, maybe some popcorn, and watch the show and just rock slow. It's not what you expected nor what you thought, so by the time you wake the fuck up and smell the pot smoke, without confessing anything, there's a lot of waking up in the morning and perhaps consuming this almost first thing, because that's how the day usually gets going if you're into that life, you know. There usually are big bags of grass, and people have moved past zigzags, but at the time that was the shit. He's with the doc, so you know that ghost skull and the crossbones is poison to boys and girls who do not know, so it's probably some dank ass shit going on. I don't know, it just feels like he's flowing it through, and he's creating art, but like also with the weed, right? So he's getting high, but there's like a heavy art theme to it at the same time, right? Picasso with a pickaxe and a sick axle, you know, like it's not just weed. Like there's almost like a creation aspect. Like him and Dre come together.
Well, I think like the harpsichord feature is like, I mean, that's like from like the Baroque period. So I think that's, I don't know if he mentions like, you know, any Baroque artists, but or any, you know, musicians or anything, but like I understand like there's like definitely like that artistry that is featured within it.
So in the sense of the double entendre of the song, right? So they start off smoking pot in the last song, and everything is high, and they're making music, and it's a good time. Look what happens in verse 2. Your dreams are getting fulfilled. And honestly, I just caught this now, so. I'm literally getting a chill, spitting at will. Me and Dre have just finished splitting a pill. I always thought that was like a little bit weird. Right, I didn't really think about it till now, but in my narrative, right, so they were high, a little goofy, and I was like, all right, I'll split the pill with you.
Like he's falling back.
Which is for the sake of, like, this song. So it's almost like weed. The problem with getting high off of a weed, I said it like that.
Off of a weed.
Anyway, so the problem with getting high like that is when you do get high, and it's not something you're familiar with, because there's habitual users who act and behave a certain way, and then there's the occasional user who gets kind of ripped. So if you haven't touched it in a while and you've been sober, I'll bet that dank ass secondhand smoke hotboxing you and shit will get you a little bit fucked up, and then that will progress to like a pill, and the next thing you know, you're fucking talking about serial killers and all sorts of crazy shit, right? Then we get to like the third verse, where if you think about the ganja as the chronic, and if you think about what is Dre's music is the chronic, so it must be the chronic. Come on, it's a duck. Dre's the weed. That's the big fucking reveal in this song. Dre's the ganja, and we know
so Dre's what Eminem's been huffing on.
Because what is this album? Dre and Eminem together. What happens when they come together? It gets you high. So that's pretty clever, right? So now I think it serves the role in the story for the first two verses to kind of exemplify the escalation. But in the third verse, check out how he ends it. Good evening. This isn't even a weed thing. I ain't even smoke anything. I ain't even drinking. It's almost like he breaks the fourth wall to make sure that you, the listener, knows that he's sober. Because if you're like me, you were going, did you get high to write this? You know, like, I mean, obviously he doesn't need to be high to come off like this, but you're kind of left wondering a little bit, you know? And it's pretty strong, man. But like, yo, behind a board sits Dre. Legends are made this way. Isn't it safe to say it's the way it should be? You know, all of a sudden you're like, oh, the Chronic. Again, that was an epiphany I had today. So, and that means we had recorded part 1 and I didn't even have that epiphany. So thank goodness for part 2, you know? But yeah, I did have the idea that, like, you know, the song was supposed to be correlating to the music in the situation, but it actually makes even more sense when you consider that the ganja that makes him high, that gets him going, that creates all these different situations, that makes him want to spit all the serial killer shit. Let's be real, the rhyming's great. I don't even think we have to say that. It's every song. But the accents are pretty cool in this one too. Like, it's not that bad. It's not like I feel like this is an okay song. It's pretty good. It's a 4.15. It's not like super good. It's not like one that when it comes on I feel like it's kind of like I feel like what I just said about the previous track where like when it comes on it's good, but it's more forgettable.
Yeah. Well, let's find out what happens in Mr. Mathers.
Skit.
Mr. Mathers. Mr. Mathers, can you hear my voice?
So then Mr. Mathers has a paramedic played by cast member of 6 Feet Under. It was Matthew St. Patrick who plays the role of Keith on that show, in case you wanted to know, for you 6 Feet Under fans out there. And yeah, so he comes in and is just kind of like describing finding Eminem and how he's out cold, and they're gonna like take him in with the backboard. And as we've said, the skit service transitionary phases, so you watch kind of like the last 3 songs where like this relapse moment, he was having trouble coping and sleeping and shit, and then, you know, for old time's sake, you have that one moment, and then from that one moment it escalates up into Mr. Mathers again. And Mr. Mathers is now the paramedics like talking to him and shit. And I mean, I know what comes next, and it's hard to picture this skit without what comes next, so it's like already builds up your emotions and whatnot. And I mean, we'll talk about what happened in the next song because that's kind of the core of it, but it's a really powerful, like, it just sobers you up in a sense, right? Because if you think about it, you're all hyped, but this is a sobering fucking moment, and it just, the whole tone shifts and it gets serious in a way that it hasn't been the entire album, kind of like his life. It wasn't serious until this pivotal moment, so it really fits him well, and I give it a 4.5.
Cool. Yeah, I mean, this is basically like the paramedic showing up, and he's OD'd, I guess, and everything is kind of warped sounding, and you know, they're just kind of like describing like what they found and like just talking to like dispatch basically. So it's fine, and it works for like moving the story along, especially as it goes into the next one. So I give it a 4 on 5.
And then we talk about Deja Vu.
And maybe if I just drink half, I'll be half buzzed for half of the time. Who's the man?
All right, Bonnie, how do you feel about Deja Vu?
So I mean, it kind of like I said, it flows from like the skit into this one. And we hear the paramedic still talking, and he's basically kind of like talking about like what happened like when he OD'd, like the real story sort of. And talks about like how Valium was like his favorite, and how he just like kind of does drugs and he eats crap and he isolates himself, and you know, people have concerns around him, but like I think people are also starting to like kind of just be like fed up with him a little bit. And then he also talks about that he's so rich that he could have anything, but you know, he's just like eating like crap, and it feels like he's kind of gone through this more than once, that he's kind of suffered from like over and over and over again, where he just can't like escape like the drugs, and like he just needs to like go back to them like every time. And I think that's you know, he's obviously struggling with that, like he doesn't maybe want to go back to them, but like he just keeps finding himself like drawn to them. And he can't control himself, and he has like difficulties kind of drawing the line as to like, you know, when he should stop or what he should and shouldn't do, and he ends up overdoing it, as he tends to, I guess, and he kind of makes excuses for his drug use, and that he's using it for different reasons, and he's dealing it to for things that he's dealing with, but really any excuse is a good one to do drugs. And that's kind of like why he kept going back. Like he just had all these excuses. And it feels like very lonely. It feels like a very lonely song, and pretty honest in terms of like what he's talking about. And it's pretty good, and he's basically realizing and dealing with like the issues, and he's kind of seeing it from like a different perspective than maybe what he used to, and it's kind of like understanding, and like kind of I don't think he necessarily wants to have that deja vu ever again. I think he's kind of like realizing like this has to stop. So I give this a 4.35 on 5.
So this song, documents kind of how he relapses, right? Mm-hmm. So, we get the first verse, and it's as I fall deeper into a manic state, I'm a prime candidate for the gene to receive the drug addict trait. Blood pressure climbs at a dramatic rate. I seem to gravitate to the bottle of NyQuil, then I salivate. And then you get the sense he can't sleep, he's fucking crazed out, and he goes from NyQuil, and then from NyQuil he moves over to Valium, and that's fine, because again, these are all legal drugs. These are all things you're allowed to do, and yeah. A guy like Eminem doesn't have to try hard to get a prescription for something like that,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then,
but it's also what he's grown up. He's talked about it. It's what his mom gave him, and it's what he knows.
And then he kind of ends up proceeding to get kind of munchied out, because apparently when you do food pills like that, which I haven't done, you kind of end up getting hungry for some shit. This is what I'm reading on the internet. I don't really know, so he's describing it like that. And then it kind of cuts almost to Haley, as he's kind of his version, and that she's like, yo, he's being kind of weird, he's not shaving, he just ate some fucking chocolate bars and passed out in his car, what the fuck's going on, And that chorus though, oh my, this is one of the best Eminem hooks, for real. Sometimes I feel so alone, I just don't know. Feels like I've been down this road before, so lonely and cold. It's like something takes over me as soon as I go home and close the door. It kind of feels like deja vu. I want to get away from this place, I do, but I can't, and I won't. Say I try and I won't. That's a lie, because I don't, and why, I just don't know. Now, when this album came out, and I thought about this today, where was I in life? I was at, one of the lowest points of my life, where I would do things spend 3 days in bed watching TV and not, getting up. And I was going through, I guess, my first real understanding of what the fuck depression was in some real shit. And at this time, I had been prescribed a sleeping aid. It wasn't anything serious, but hearing shit like this and then the Heath Ledger situation scared the shit out of me. I remember one day I took 5 or 6 of them. They were really mild, so whatever. And they weren't sleeping pills, they were sleeping aids still, and then consumed some greener stuff and proceeded to fall asleep. And I just remember wishing I would being afraid I would die, because Heath Ledger had died off of sleeping pills.
Yeah.
Anyway, but then you go through this phase where weeks kind of blend together, and you just maybe wake up and consume your shit and don't really do anything with your life, and then you just phase and you're just alone and isolated, and every day is just deja vu. So I know that when I first heard this hook, it just connected so much with the dark place I was in my life. And I don't know, when I consider my life now and I listen to it, it's even more meaningful for just how much I could relate to it, and how much this song in particular.
That makes sense.
I've never been an addict like this, so I can't say I had any kind of experiences proceeding to be okay, what's a beer, what's a whatever, and then he has a drink at the game and whatever, but he's mixing it with fucking painkillers, so knocks out, hits the floor, etc.
Yep.
Wakes up, he's all fucked up, headachy, grabs a Vicodin, flies off. My life never hit that, but I know there's a version of my life with a couple of bad choices where my life could have been that. So I always really connected. I don't know. And then you get that third verse, so he's taking the Vicodin and he's kind of hating himself, making excuses. Now, I've done some bad, shitty things to myself over time, and you make excuses like that. You come up with it, and it's just, this is such an honest song. This is hi folks, my name's Marshall. I'm an addict. this is my story, how I ended up here, relapsing, why I have to reset, you know, like, and it's just a really detailed linear account of the gradual escalation for taking these Ambiens and Valiums, and oh fuck, now I'm fucking doing the drugs all the time, and do it while my kids are at school, and you just come up with your excuses and you sneak it through. And one of the best parts of this song is like, has taken that's an Albion, each nap how many Valium 3, that's, and will that average out to be 1 good hour of sleep? Okay, so now you know the reason how come he has taken 4 years to just put out an album. B, see, me and you, we almost had the same outcome, Heath. Again, like that line
Yeah.
actually might have changed my life. Like, on the real, maybe it was just a concoction of moments in my world that worked out, but watching Heath Ledger pass away, having been prescribed sleeping aids, antidepressants, like the pharmaceutical world was trying to indoctrinate me as one of those people. And not long after that, I swore I'd never engage with pharmaceuticals from those people again, and I haven't. Really, occasionally I'll have a Tylenol, one, not even one, like a regular boring ass, maybe an extra strength. But no, I don't fuck with that shit. And a lot of it is just Eminem almost dying and Heath Ledger dying. So thank you for this song, Marshall. If you do watch this, you're probably not going to, because that Christmas, you know, the whole pneumonia thing. It was Bologna. Was it the Methadonia thing? And apparently it's not Methadonia, it's Methadonia, and Methadonia is a slang term for kind of something to do with being hooked on methadone, like it's like slang for the methadone addicts. Or the hypochondone you hide inside your pornos, your VCR tapes with your Ambien CR, great places to hide them so you can lie to Haley. I'm going Betty, bye, Whitney, baby, good night, Elaney, go in the room, shut the door, wake up in ambulance, they said they found me on the bathroom floor, which is the little thing right before this song starts, and then it drops the last hook. And I think this is one of the most beautiful and meaningful songs Eminem has ever written in his career. I think it's highly underrated. I think this is powerful because this is like what becomes Not Afraid. Like, Not Afraid isn't as impactful without Deja Vu, because Deja Vu is the broken man, and then, spoiler alert, Not Afraid comes in on the next album and it's just like the fucking champion comeback moment you've been waiting for. Spoiler alert. But yeah, I love this song. I mean, the beat's just perfect. It's almost like on purpose everything before it on this album was less good than this moment. Almost. Okay. Maybe I'm wrong. I give this a 5. This is an incredible track.
Would you say it's beautiful?
I would say it's beautiful. I'm just so
inside each other's minds just to see what we find. Look at shit the way.
Just can't seem to get out this slump. If I could just get I fucking love this song. I don't even know how to describe it. Like, everything I just said about the last song, if you thought Deja Vu was powerful, think about the role of beautiful on this album. So you break down, you have your lowest of lows, and then this is a song about self-love and learning to almost love yourself again and appreciate who you are. He apparently wrote the first half of this song when he was in rehab. And this is the only song, this is why it's not produced by Dre. This is the only song from prior to this recording sessions that he felt made sense here. He'd written the first verse and a half or so while he was in rehab, and the rest of it while he got out. So when you're really thinking about that, I didn't really know that. So, I'm just so fucking depressed. I just can't seem to get out this slump. If I could just get over this hump, I need something to pull me out this slump. I took my bruises, it's like, this is Eminem sitting in rehab, trying to get over his fucking, like, feelings of all this shit and understand, feeling this most broken, so low, I love that we just decided to pick out this pen up and try to make an attempt to vent, but I just can't admit or come to the grips with the fact that I may be done with rap. I need a new outlet. It's like inside of him there's that doubt, like, is this the end? Yeah. It's just beautifully put together. I mean, I could go through this line for line and tell you how it might, like, make me feel some emotional shit, but I can tell you, like, Bonnie can admit this, I basically rapped the first 2 verses almost bar for bar in the living room just off of memory earlier because I used to rap this all the time when I was young. because I love this song. This song helped me.
I feel like this is something good for like somebody that's like going through something like kind of like a teenager or like, you know, like a young adult, and like it's kind of like exactly what you're saying. Like that's often like the time, like the period, like where like there's like the most struggle in life. So I think that this definitely can relate to.
And like
for,
on top of that,
those people.
like I had some hella self-esteem issues with how I look and how I fit in. Like, you know, I'm not the skinniest motherfucker, which comes with its own baggage in this day and age, you know. So like just the way people have treated me, the way my attitude has come off as kind of weird. And let's say the confidence thing that exists today once was some arrogant petulance that people didn't necessarily like. So for a long time I felt like an isolated loser in my own little world and shit. So having lines like, but don't let them say you aren't beautiful, they can all get fucked, just stay true to you. Like I took that shit to such a heart that you can ask Bonnie. In a sense, I still kind of live like that with everything I do.
Yeah.
I still kind of take that they can all get fucked, I'm gonna stay true to me. Because yo, that shit is like mantra worthy to me, and I have really spent a decade of my life feeling those lines and letting that kind of shit inspire it. And to my chagrin, that isn't always the smartest approach to life if you want to climb up corporate ladders or things like that. But if you can make it to your 30s staying true to yourself, maybe you have a podcast and some other weird shit going on in your life. You don't even know what's going on.
Woo!
And you can be like unapologetically yourself. And that's something I can be today, because honestly, a song like this helped me define who I am one day, because Eminem made it cool. It's true, man. And then that second verse, I think I'm starting to lose my sense of humor. Everything's so tense and gloom. This is me every 5 months. Half the times when you see me mopey on the channel, I'm having moods like that, you know? I almost feel like I gotta check the temperature in the room just as soon as I walk in. It's like all eyes on me, so I try to avoid any eye contact. Now, even though he's famous, this is how it feels even if you're not famous or anything. It's like you walk into a room and everybody's staring at you and shit, you know? You know, I'm not looking for extra attention. I just want to be just like you, blend in with the rest of the room. Like, I've never walked into a room and not kind of stood out. Like, never in my life. I don't blend into shit. I'm just that awkward motherfucker in most places. So, like, so much of this shit, like, people think I'm funny. I'm not a funny person, in my opinion. I don't try to make jokes. I'm me, and people start laughing because I say shit and it's fun. I don't even get, I'm not stupid. I know why the shit's funny now, but like for a long time, I wasn't trying to be funny. It just, that works. So I would act like an asshole or whatever, and you just almost get encouraged to be a shithead, to be mean, to be negative, because yo, if you can make observational, sharp humor, at least that's a mechanism where people will like you. And I know it sounds crazy, but if you make fun of people, people will like you for a long time in your life until they don't. Until you cross them, until you say the wrong thing.
Well, I don't know if maybe things are different today. I think there's like more like bullying action that's taken and stuff like that. So,
but like from my understanding, like when I hear this here, and then you even consider his career a little bit and the different things he's gone through to get to this point, right? It's almost like he was an asshole because he felt so broken and so empty, and this is how he made people like him. And like him, they liked him enough to hand him the world to make it his medicine ball and shit. Either way, it's like the other side of the last song, like I'm starting to rebuild my life through some serious self-awareness and shit. And then literally as I was taking a shower, not even an hour before we recorded this thing, because if you were to partake in certain substances and take a shower, holy fuck, do you have amazing ideas that come like every single time. For those of you who do that, you know what the fuck I'm talking about. But I was actually listening to this very song, and he goes, I already told you my whole life story, not just based on my description, because where you see it from where you're sitting is probably 110% different. I guess we would have to walk around each other's shoes at least, etc. And then I went back to that line, because I already told you my whole life story, not just based on my description. But think about that, his whole career, but also what's this album up until this point.
his life story.
Fucking brilliant. That's that meta game writing that Eminem does to like tie those little loose ends together for you. But that's true. He literally on this project told you his whole life story to get to that thing, but you're still gonna have your perception because where you see it's different. I also wear the same shoe size as Eminem, so I'm not gonna lie, I really connected with that lyric too. I don't know, man.
All right.
And then it's just a really great song, man. Like, it's beautiful. Eminem does his bad singing, so you can bad sing along to it too. And I don't know, it's got I think it's a Queen sample, or is it somebody like the "Lately I've been hard to reach"? Yeah, it's Queen and Paul Rogers' version of "Reaching Out." I was pretty sure it was a Queen sample. So yeah, that was a thing. And I mean, it goes without saying that this is one of Eminem's most beautiful and amazing songs he ever wrote, that again probably doesn't get the love it deserves because it's encompassed with the same fucking album as Insane. 5 on 5.
All right. I mean, anyways, I'll just go into it. It starts off and it sounds a little bit more like a rock and roll song. I think like it just kind of starts off like that, and maybe that's because of like the Queen sample or something. And even though it's been kind of like fucking hard to be him, he realizes that he has done some incredible stuff, and that nobody will be able to accomplish what he's accomplished. Like he has succeeded. He has been, a breakthrough artist. He has pushed the limits. He's done a lot of things for the music industry. And in terms of like politics and everything, he's really like accomplished a lot, but that's not necessarily an easy task to accomplish all of that and to kind of be the bad guy and fight the man so much, and it takes a lot out of you, and like that's kind of it. Like everybody thinks so highly about him and thinks like so great that he's he can do no wrong almost, but like actually like imagine being in his shoes and what he has to deal with. And it's not just about like the fame and whatever. He gets a lot of negative press as well, so it's not all great things that come to him. And he has a lot of other things like internal issues and family issues that he has to deal with, and he's been dealing with his entire life, and it's still quite relevant in his life, even still today, and shit just isn't easy, and he just wanted to be liked, and he wanted to be normal, and he no matter what. And so I think that's kind of what it was, that he did have it so hard, and he just wanted to like fit in where he could and when he could, and so yeah, I mean it's kind of like a sappy, kind of sad, self-pitying kind of song, but there's still also like he recognizes that what he's done is pretty incredible, and basically like people can hate, but like I still have done like all of these great things, and like I can't be touched, kind of like it's sort of like that. So for me, like I mean, I think also too the fact that you've been listening to this album for like 10 years, or at least that you had like a you listened to it a lot at one point when it really meant something to you.
We can say that I've listened to this song along with a couple others on this album for a solid 10 years. The album.
Yeah, but like, so I think that that's probably why you get something so different, and I think that's kind of like the great thing. I think that's exactly why we do these classic quests, because there's so many albums that we're gonna have like the way I view it, but when there's like Holden's view of it, it's so completely different, and that's kind of what the comments are for so many for so many albums.
That's fair.
But anyways, this one was it's obviously like he's still kind of dealing with like his struggle with kind of social media and media in general, and how they report on him, and is he kind of the person that you read about? Like, is he that person, or is he who he thinks he is? And he's kind of not really sure. Kind of sometimes he gets lost a little bit as well. So I gave it a 4 on 5. I liked it, but I didn't think it was like as astounding as you thought it was.
Fair enough. That's just maybe a little bit because of the connection to it, right?
Yeah, of course. That's what I was saying.
Any song that you listened to when you was 20 that you cried to and shit and had your sappy moments to, you felt a certain way. And then when you put on the alcohol and the Cutney and you felt a little bit better, and then you left the room, you celebrated and you cracked a bottle.
Okay, thank goodness.
sauce. If I could fit the words, it's picture perfect, works every time. Every verse, every line, a simple.
What happens after you break down and you have your self-awareness and shit?
You get drunk.
No, I mean, what do you do when you crack a bottle? Like, this is how you celebrate. Like, at work, we have pop champagne for everything. For someone that literally, like, sometimes we do these minor accomplishments and they bust out, like, 6 bottles of Moet or whatever, and you're like, what? Okay, I guess we'll spend 15 minutes. Right, honestly, sometimes. And you'll spit there for 15 minutes. I don't drink anymore, so I don't take any. But, you know, you just sit there, you take your little cup, and then you go back to work. So cracking a bottle to me is about celebration. Now, part of what this song is we gotta think about the features, which is something we haven't talked about. First of all, there's nobody on the album. Wayne wanted to work with Eminem at this time. He literally reached out through Tim Westwood. I think it's Tim Westwood, the British guy that Eminem did the freestyle on a couple years back. That was fresh. The 11-minute one that Em did. That dude, Lil Wayne was on it and had literally recorded a message for Eminem. He's like, and he plays the message, and Wayne's like, listen, man, I just want to do a song with you. I know you're going to body me on a song, so I don't want to do any of that battle-y shit. But it doesn't matter. I just want to do a song with you. And he had that, like, Wayne voice. I hope I did a good Wayne voice. But Eminem was describing that in this process, it was like, nah, I couldn't. My head wasn't there. It was me and Dre, and that was it. I couldn't create with other people, etc. Then we get this song, which actually, the original version seemed to have 2 verses from M, and we know this because there's a leak on the internet that you can check out. Out of respect, I'm not going to share the leak, but you can find it pretty easy. And the second verse has M doing the reference track, so you have M being like, they say that low rider go by, they're like, oh my, you ain't got to tell me why you're sick, cause I know why. And like, you hear him doing it all down to Sick'em Dre, all of it. And yeah, so this just kind of feels though like these are 3 legends of rap in their own lanes walking in, because 50 Cent's also on the song, and taking it back. So think about the context. We've got the whole story, the rehabs happen, he's rebuilt himself, he's feeling his self-confidence, he's ready to go. Crack a bottle, the King's is back, baby. And that's the part of it. That's about the story. That's where we're at with this song. Yeah. It's the return of everybody. And at this point, I mean, 50 Cent's not quite what he was, but he's still a name that is, well, 50 Cent is a very fascinating character. I enjoy 50 Cent. I don't know that I enjoy 50 Cent's music, but gosh, I like 50 Cent. He was the worst and the best part of Power all at the same time. Like, it's like he knew what real gangsters are supposed to be like, so he just did the biggest parody he could. It was like the funniest shit in the world to watch 50 do that.
No, you could just tell that he was just so happy, like with every like.
He was just having fun.
Yeah.
He gave 0 fucks and rolled with it. But yeah, Eminem does his verse. It's fine. I never thought this song was like particularly excellent, even when it dropped as a single. Or it's not really a single. It kind of got leaked, I think, and then they put it out. But it wasn't a single for the album. The official first single for the album is We Made You. But it is the first single for the album. We call it a promo single. And, like, listening to it back then, I was like, it's fine. I don't really like 50 that much. Like, let's be honest, 50's verse is bottle after bottle. The money ain't a thing when you party with me. It's what we into. It's
it definitely didn't hold up.
We ball out of control like you wouldn't believe. I'm the napalm, the bomb, the dawn, I'm King Kong. And that part's pretty dope. But like, I feel like it breaks the flow of the song a little bit. I've always had this to say. M and 50 together, fucking fire and it works. M and Dre together, fucking fire and it works. But the M that works with Dre is not the same M I think that works with 50. And so, all things considered, I felt like we had like
this was the Dre Eminem.
Yeah, and then all of a sudden
that makes sense.
Bottle after, like, why is there a little R&B singy Ja Rule like hook going on here? Yeah, that's right, I said it. It's very Ja Rule like. I don't know, but either way, he's rich, he's flossy, blah blah blah, and 50's fair. And Dre's verse is just. It, like, both M's and Dre's verses felt like they could have been on something like For Old Time's Sake, but they were just like better verses. But they were like playing to their niches a little bit more, you know, like, because when I spit the verse, the shit gets worse than worse Worcestershire sauce, which sounds like he's saying Worcestershire or whatever, and that's a fucking sick rhymes. If I can fit the words as picture perfect, works every time. Every verse, every line, as simple as nursery rhyme. It's just fucking good, man. It's dope. It's refreshing, right? Like,
Yeah.
on this album, it's like, wow, we got our Eminem back. He's back. You know, that's kind of what you're feeling. We Made You was kind of like you're back, but he's lampooning himself. But this is like really just like dope. Like it could have been Eminem show.
Yeah.
And then 50 Cent shows up. And and then the chorus, I don't know how I feel about the chorus, but I do like the message it's promoting. So crack a bottle, let your body waddle, don't act like a snobby model, you just hit the lotto. Listen, ladies, I suppose if Eminem's trying to pick you up, I'm not going to say I know better in the groupie game and shit, but M's got to be on the bigger end, because I did look this up one day when I was bored, and every groupie that has ever been written about that slept with M and interviewed has said he has always been a perfect gentleman relative to others. So M is a good one. Don't act like a snotty model. In fact, in the groupie world, you did just hit the lotto. And then, now where's the rubbers? Who's got the rubbers? I noticed there's so many of them, and there's not that many of us. We need more rubbers because there's lots of people to be boning.
Yep.
That's a good situation. Anyway, it sounds like a fun time, a really cool and enjoyable experience. I give it a 4.5. Like, in its role on this album,
Yeah,
it's like
it's not bad.
you're celebrating with him. Like, if you're like me, you worked out this story, you're cracking that bottle because M deserves that shit. He picked himself up. It's fucking cool. It is that celebration. As a single, there's so many better versions of these guys doing things that this is so low on the list of collabs involving these guys. It is.
Yeah. I mean, this song definitely sounds like I don't think it ever made it like to like mainstream, but it sounds like it could have. I mean, at least I didn't notice it. Maybe I was, not listening to like this kind of music at the time, but it is pretty catchy, and it is like the most Eminem kind of fun sound that we get. It's fun, it's goofy, it has some great rhymes on it, and it's like him and his buddies, his crew. And yes, I definitely agree that 50 Cent is like kind of too smooth for this song, but it's still like enjoyable to hear from him.
Give it a 4.5. Okay, I agree.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's fun. I like hearing from him and his friends. It's just like, it's nice that he still has this positive support system. I think that's a good thing as well. So I gave this a 4.3 on 5.
All right. The next one is another skit.
Steve Berman.
Hideout? Stay in Detroit for almost 5 years while the music industry melts the
I think the most substantial part of this skit is the idea that Eminem deciding to take a 4 or 5 year hiatus got motherfuckers fired and shit, and like there's real like
consequences.
Like you can't just fuck with people's lives like that. Like Steve is not happy with Eminem. Let's be real. Steve got shot by Eminem the last time they encountered. He was just trying to tell him that he liked the album that time. It was different. So Eminem comes in, humble pie, like, hey, Steve, good to see you, man. Like, we've never had Eminem acting like that towards Steve Berman before, And then
like he's like groveling. He's kind of like a dog with like his tail between his legs.
And then, like, Em's like, are you wearing a fucking vest? And then he's like, yeah, of course I am. You fuck whatever. And then he's like, man, I was a drug addict, blah, blah, blah. Poor me, I'm so famous, blah, 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 blah. And he's just like, I know what your album's going to be like. Fuck out of here, etc. And it's just, he's just like laying it onto him. And he's like, get the fuck out. He pulls out a gun, starts to cock it. And Eminem's like, oh shit, what's going on here? Like, listen, I'm just trying to tell you. And guess what? This is another excellent moment of marketing, like really good marketing, prior the viral era of social media. There's 2 CDs. There's a second disc coming. It's not just this one. There's a second. Oh my gosh. Little 20-year-old me, I was tripping. We were all tripping. Oh my gosh. And then King Mathers, the rumor started with that shit. I don't know, you probably were following that.
I don't remember that.
King Mathers was supposed to come before this. I might be wrong, I think. And then anyway, so there was supposed to be like a Relapse 2 originally.
Okay.
And then either he wasn't thrilled with it or something happened and it ended up becoming Recovery. And then Refill was like these 9 extra songs. So yeah, we are talking about Refill. That is coming, those 9 extra songs. That's
Yep.
part 3 of this little review series, though it might be in a few days for whatever. And if it's in the future, all 3 are on the channel, so you should check that out. Anyway, so just the idea, but it was such an important thing for him to do, right? Because he lost our faith. Like, I don't know about you, person watching this, but if you were like me, like, and you were at like 14, 15, Eminem's like your introduction to music. He's literally taking over. Like, my high school experience was Eminem's ascent, right? It was the glory days of Eminem. It's
Yeah.
grade like, I don't know, 7 to 11. That's Quebec high school grades. We don't have a 12. All of that period, Eminem is the shit.
I remember being 16 and my sister was getting married and we were at her wedding and like Eminem came on and like even my mom who's like such like a like I don't know, she's very like straight line down, you know, like she doesn't like mess around or anything. She even got up and danced and like everybody remembers this, like her dance moves to like Eminem because we were all just like, what? Like it's not the Beatles? You know, so it was just pretty cool to see her do that.
Oh, my mom does, you better lose yourself in the music.
Oh yeah,
The whole
no.
thing. But or the real Slim Shady. My mom like that. My mom also does that when she's listening to the Nelly song. If you want to go and take a ride with me, she's every time, hey, must be the money. Like every single time. Can't help it. Driving, whatever. Anyway, so the thing is like, we didn't have faith, right? And then he drops this project. And to tell us on this that, look,
Yeah.
I'm so ready to go. This is part 2 coming. I'm back, motherfuckers. And then the part 2 that we got, I mean, we'll get there, but that's the moment, like, for real, Not Afraid drops. That's a good moment in life. Anyway, I thought this skit was humorous. I think it serves its purpose. He tells him about the albums. It also has the juxtaposition and the role reversal of Steve being the aggressor and almost like things have changed. Eminem
Yes.
is not allowed to walk into corporate America anymore and tell them what to do. They're in charge.
Yeah,
and he's got to play ball a
he
little
fucked
more.
up a bit, and so yeah, he definitely can't do what he once did.
And I think that's really cool. Like, it's one thing when you are employing all these people, when you are the source of that, you do get to act a little bit like a shit sometimes, because at the end of the day, you are having that impact.
You're
But
the
yeah,
boss.
just imagine the tour people that couldn't go. I mean, I'm certain these people also had other gigs, but like the idea that all these people who were assigned to Eminem, boom, nothing to do now.
Yeah.
Anyway, that is job. Did you give it a grade?
No. I mean, yeah, I mean, I don't really have too much different to say. I mean, Steve Berman is sassy as hell, and it's been 4 years, and he got shot by Eminem, so yeah, he's wearing a bulletproof vest, and he basically just has no sympathy, no time for, like, Eminem shit, and Eminem is trying to be good. He's trying to, like, you know, kind of ask for forgiveness. He wants to just discuss an album with him, like, what he's come up with, and, you know, Steve kind of finds out, you know, kind of calls out what it's going to be and kind of gets pissed off and, you know, it's the same old thing. Oh, wow, poor me. And it kind of is to a point, but different. And it's exactly it. Eminem is dealing with like the consequences to his actions and his behavior. And it's not always easy for people to forget. And, you know, just because you have a drug problem doesn't necessarily you know, make it any easier for people to forgive you for like a lot of shit that you've done to them, and a lot of, you know, people have put their name and their reputation on the line for you, and like they get fucked because you did this kind of stuff. So it's not always easy to forgive. Period. And then kicks him out of the office. And I just wonder if this was like his actual reception to, you know, like when Eminem decided to show back up into like the real world.
I think that there is a lot of truth in these skits.
Yes, absolutely.
So I do think that is not the actual conversation.
No, but
So
I think
don't
it was
that he pulls out
probably.
guns. But I do think that Eminem got the shit kicked out of him by Interscope. Like, I think they beat the fuck out of him for a quick second because they fucked with Interscope's cash flow. And as much as Eminem's powerful, you don't fuck with Jimmy. Jimmy's a very powerful man.
Yeah. So yeah, I gave this a 4.1 on 5.
So yeah, there's one more on the album proper, and
We're going underground, folks.
that's true.
Fucking Whipple Bat Drew. Fought Freddy Krueger and Edward Scissorhands too. And came out with.
So let's talk about the story. Come to the end. We have the crack a bottle. Eminem's back. Steve Berman's kind of like saying, look, there are consequences to your action. Eminem does this promo thing, and he's showing that self-awareness there. And in typical Eminem fashion, throws caution to the wind, says, fuck that, Slim Shady's back! And that's how he ends the album, right? Like, he's just like, I'm back, bitches. That's the end of it. He gets the whole lecture, yeah, I'm gonna behave. Do. But no, really, what this is I think this is one of the most impressive songs on the album. Because it's the hardest beat on the album.
Okay.
Think about it from like a construction. That rhythm is fucking weird. That is not your standard timing and whatever. There's something off like that. Dun, 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 dun. Like it's not your regular I don't think it's 4x4. It might be just something's off about it. Maybe it's a syncopated beat rhythms, but there's something about it that I feel like the level of difficulty Eminem had rapping over this one was higher than the other beats.
Okay.
So he's ending on the strongest Slim Shady shit, and then he just goes in a little bit, but it's still like evolved compared to what it is. Like it's a self-aware shit. Like tell him shit's about to get extra messy, especially when I flex again and throw a fucking lesbian in wet cement. Faggity, 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 raggedy Ann and Andy. No, raggedy Andy and Andy. No, it can't be. It can't be. Yes, it can be. The fucking Antichrist is back. Dante is Satan in black Santa panties. And it's just like ludicrous.
Yeah.
Very Slim Shady like. This is the criminal of this album, but like more intense, like scaled up, ready to fucking go. You know, like pretty ridiculous.
More man-on-man action that he loves.
But like a little bit more honest. Like I'm back. Like last year I fucked up. You know, last year was a tragedy that landed me smack dab in rehab. Fucking doctor, I didn't understand a damn word he said. I planned to relapse the second I walked out that bitch. He's crazy. He's Slim Shady. Shady's back, baby. And it really feels like that, you know? Like it's just strong. It's just hard rapping. It's fucking intense. It's bars in a sense, but it's offensive. But it's also like he manages to make all the gay jokes silly so that it doesn't come off in like quite the way like fucking lesbian shouldn't have given her had her legs in the way. Now she's pregnant and gay, missing both legs and begging to stay. It's a little bit whatever, but at the same time it's still kind of goofy. I know it's weird to say that, but it comes off kind of goofy when you're listening to it. You're like, okay. Mm-hmm. And then let's be real. The third verse is he just kind of lists every pop culture horror character and niches and makes a line about them, like have Michael Myers looking like a liar, swipe his power, replace his knife with flowers and a stack of flyers, hit Jason Voorhees with a 40, suck a suppository at possessed, made him tell me a story. Okay, I mean, it sounds great to listen to, but you're like, what the fuck is going on in this verse? But then you think about it, it's I control the darkness.
Okay.
Yeah. Because he's so fucking in control of the situation. He can go to the worst and the darkest of the dark. He can play in all of that shit, and he's got that control. And he's went to the underground, the hellish parts in life, and now he has that control and that strength in him. Because he can fuck up every serial killer and psychotic person. And we know he studied them and shit throughout the album. And I think that's why it ends like that. With that, like, I can go to the dark place now, but I'm the one who wins. They don't control me anymore. Okay,
sort of like when you take control of like your like nightmares.
Yeah, and so it has like, because it kind of has the same tone as the crazier earlier versions of this track, only it's not. It's like a self-aware, this is kind of like, and if you think about it, the gay jokes and shit, this is stuff that he was negatively criticized for, and he's kind of like saying, fuck you, I can do it, and now that you know my whole story, this is just this character of Slim Shady, so faggity, faggity, Andy, Andy, you know, like, and I thought that was really cool, and I thought this song is really great, and it's always been one of my favorites on this album, a very strong way to end this project, up until you get this really honest, like, so it wasn't a choice. It was I had to do this. And now I got 90 days clean. And that's all I have to share. Thanks for sharing, Brian. Anyone else who would like to share this evening? You may have been waiting for it, folks. But here comes when you walk through the door, you were queer to me. And I'm like, oh, it's Ken
Yeah.
Kniff. Ken Kniff is back. And I just love condoms and lots of cum. He's like, fuck out of here. What a way to end the album.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it is such a good way to be like, Shady's back. And the self-awareness of throwing it right at the end, tucking it in, not making it a central moment or something, you know. It's kind of a goof on, again, lampooning himself. Like, even if you
Yeah.
think about all the excessive gay bar lines, it's lampooning how he relied on that as a shock tactic.
Yeah.
And that's why I like this song. Even the drug use, it's lampooning it. Like, after Sit pissed through a Christopher Reeve sippy cup. Why is he bringing up Christopher Reeves again?
Because he can't stop himself.
Because that's part of the Slim Shady flushing it all out, like, you know. And so it's again done to troll you a little bit, because can we not forget Eminem's a troll?
Yeah.
I love this song. I think I said that already. Even with the Ken Kniff bullshit, 5 on 5.
Wow. Okay. I mean, for me, like, people, it kind of starts off and people were wondering like where he's been, and you know, he just kind of justifies it and says like, you know, listen, I overdosed, I went to rehab, I took time to like fix myself, and which is fine, you know, it's definitely something that you need to do. Although I don't really think that there's really new stuff being discussed on this song. But the overall sound of the song, like you mentioned, is very like intense feeling, and like the intensity is felt like when like the bad guy, like kind of like his alter ego comes back to life, and then we kind of like meet them in like a movie, and then it sets like the scene for like the darkness that's coming. For me, like, it seemed a little bit of like a weird placement on this album, but like that's my own opinion as well.
Even
don't
with
know.
my story,
Like, okay, like I think that like once you have to know your story, like you have to like
but that's
figure that out, and I feel like that's
what I mean. Everything about this album is weird placement.
like I think that it's
until-
difficult enough, like not difficult, but like it's some of the songs are like like really like hard to get through, and I think that like to have to go back and listen to it again and again and again just to get that message, it's not the easiest thing.
Okay.
I'll just say that. But anyways, let me continue about this song. So yeah, and then there's like that weird sort of skit at like AA or like NA meeting, and it's just, and then we have like the weird creepy doctor from the very first song or the skit kind of is back again, and then just like this weird sort of shitty version of like We Made You, like somebody's kind of making fun of himself. Like I don't know, it's kind of goofy, it's kind of weird, it's kind of long. It's like 6 minutes 11 seconds. It's not the longest one, and for me, like, it just didn't sound like there was anything really new on this one, so I gave it a 3.8 on 5.
All right, so let's talk about the placement of this album. So I gave the album a 4.45, and I'm calling it a contextual classic based on what you're describing. This is like those weird horror movie type experiences, or those weird niche classics where if you get it, you'll love it, and it's gonna be fucking incredible, and it could end up being like one of your favorite Eminem albums if you catch the brilliance of how this project was put together. But I think you brought up the problem that stops this album from getting that classic status that maybe it could get. It's not universally going to be a classic, because part of being a classic is your desire to listen to it.
Yeah,
And as much as
like it's very unique, and it's, you know, it goes to show that he really is like a musical genius in his writing, that he was able to kind of weave together this story that like a lot of people, myself included, wasn't necessarily aware of.
like, we've reviewed almost all his albums now, and unless Recovery or MMLP2 proves me wrong, this might be his most cohesive story as far as the album is concerned. And I didn't know it until we did this review, and then I started to make that connection, and then all of a sudden I started seeing the songs that I formerly didn't like in an entirely new way. It's kind of like when you're watching like a graphic scene in a movie. It might not be comfortable, But it's not like the movie's bad because it's just a part of a movie. So if you look at this album like you're supposed to play it in full and it's a movie describing his relapse and recovery and all that shit, then those are the uncomfortable moments that you're supposed to feel for that tension. You're supposed to not feel comfortable listening to him getting, fornicated by his stepdad.
Yeah.
And that's part of the story because that part of his life was so uncomfortable. I think the problem is he went so far with it and he did it so well that it made it to a point where for a lot of people it's just like whack. It's just hard to listen to.
Yeah.
But now that I see like what he's doing with it, I don't know. This is one of the best story albums in that regard that I think we've come across in terms of just like bar for like every song fit into my narrative. Now, maybe I made up some shit along the way to fill in a couple blank. Maybe I stretched a little bit, but I think that I'm onto something and that, there is a purpose to the specific order of these songs without, like, because look at MMLP 1. It's like that until track 12 or so, and then he just, like, says, fuck the concept, let's plug some features and things like that happen, right?
Yeah.
Or Slim Shady LP, it doesn't have the same cohesiveness. It's got a general sense of what's going on, but it's not like track for track per track there's a story going on. Or if we look at Eminem Show, it isn't track for track a story that's being told. It's more like this is a landscape of his life.
I think he's also had 4 or 5 years to like get it together, compose something brilliant, and kind of like take like the diamond out of like the coal or whatever it is, like make something from nothing, like from like something bad and negative, like that he went through, and make something that's so him and his story and his truth and like what he went through. But like I do agree, it was definitely a little bit underground.
And then on top of that, just to add to it, this is also the only project with Eminem that we can say is just one producer, except for Beautiful, which is M, but executive produced probably with Dre. So this is the Eminem and Dr. Dre album. Like, let's be real, the Bass Brothers did a bunch of SSLP, and then like Dre comes in and did a few of it, and the Bass Brothers did a bunch of MMLP, and Dre's not the only producer. And then I know Eminem decided he's producing a bunch of shit on Eminem Show, and there were multiple producers involved, right? So like when you look at the credits, Dre's top level producer, Dre made the music, but the actual beats being made by Dre the entire way through, that's a significant thing. I just gotta say that. So now that I'm done, I don't know, what'd you give the album?
I gave the album a 3.97 on 5, so that's a 79%, so it doesn't really hold up to be a classic in my opinion. It's still, it's still Eminem. You're still gonna get what you get listening to it, like even if just like, at first glance, like without having to like really dig deep into it. What Eminem sounds like, and you're gonna get that. So, I mean, if you're interested, definitely check it out. But I don't think this is his best album. But, I mean, you disagree. So
no, I never said. Hold on. I did not say this is not. Do not say I do not think this is his best album.
I'm not saying this is his best album.
I said this is his most cohesive album from every song in the album, storytelling kind of way. Cohesive was the word I used.
Yes. I'm not. No, it's not his best, but I think it's interesting that we've got such different results.
I don't know. I came to admire the art project in it more than say the enjoyability of it. Because I mean, there's my preferences, but I don't know. I think we should encourage people like Eminem to make albums like Relapse more than shit on them for them. Because honestly, I'll take a Relapse over a Kamikaze any day of the week. Because Kamikaze, if I never heard the album again at this point, I'm okay. It's all it's all buzz. It's all fluff. It's there. There's nothing to really sink your teeth into. Half the references aren't care. Who cares about the MGK beat? The kill shot happened, all this went down. But you can still go back to Relapse and feel a certain way. There's still going to be like songs on there that you could find that you're probably still going to have a couple now that you're going to bump more than you ever did.
Probably.
Anyway. That's all I got. I don't know if you have more to say.
I think
know
that's
I keep
pretty much
cutting you
it.
off.
Like
I was excited.
I think I've said like a lot of it kind of throughout the album.
All right, so thank y'all for watching. We split it into two because, well, we would never have put the time and effort into the second half of the album that we should have if we had to rush it, because it was getting late and we were getting cranky, and that's what's up.
Angry.
We made the second one. I hope to see y'all here who watched the first one. We got another dope comment. It was long, so thank you to the person who gave us our 5th comments. Anyway, y'all are amazing, so I really look forward to reading your comments and to interacting with you. If you make that effort to comment, I'll answer you. We can have a little conversation. And I'm telling you, if you go and comment 19 times, you'll get 19 responses. A couple of them might be filler, but most of them will be like in response to what that comment said, because I'm OG like that. I don't know if that's an OG thing, but I'm OG customer service like that.
All right.
Anyway, feel free to subscribe to the channel for more reviews. Yes, we will do recovery. That'll come in a few months. Yes, we will do refill. That'll come in a few days. Yes, we'll do MMLP2, expected closer to the end of the year. And then we'll start going through the re-up. And then we'll actually go through the mixtape. So yes, we're going to keep doing Eminem because there's just a lot more. Like, have you heard the mixtape Eminems?
Probably not.
Do you want to?
Probably.
There you go. Special thanks to the patrons: Ismail Gadamsi, Lintel Williams, Chris Prada, DJ Black Hurricane, Jonathan Barnes. They support what we do. They're amazing people. They helped us get a new camera. For $1 or more, you can help us grow and thrive and prosper into something else. They also can tell us what albums to review sometimes, and you should watch out for that, because Ismail Gadamsi's request is next week, and he's forcing our hands to talk about Idea, I believe.
Yep.
Anyway, we also make music. You can check that out on this channel. It's we think it's cool. We hope you think it's cool too. You can let us know what you think. And I look forward to seeing you on the next review. Peace.
Bye, guys.